When Princess Anne finally broke her silence, the words sent shockwaves through Britain. Her father, Prince Philip, had left a chilling warning about Camilla's coronation, a warning not spoken in passing, but one sealed in conviction. For decades, whispers echoed in palace halls, but now, Anne herself has confirmed what her father feared. The monarchy's very soul, it seemed, had been at stake. Those who heard her voice that day described it as steady, deliberate, and almost mournful, as if she carried the burden of a secret too heavy to keep hidden any longer. Anne's carefully chosen words ignited immediate speculation. What had Philip truly thought of Camilla's rise? He had long been known as a man of iron discipline and unshakable loyalty to the crown, a protector who saw the monarchy not just as a family, but as a living institution that required defense at all costs. That very loyalty now framed his suspicion, for if he had warned against Camilla's coronation, it meant he saw her presence not as an innocent chapter in the royal saga, but as a threat to its foundation. The question no one could silence was simple. What had Prince Philip seen that others had ignored? Those who knew him understood that Philip's instincts were not born from idle gossip. He had lived his life as a naval officer, a strategist, a man who saw patterns others overlooked. His honor was defined by service, and his every move measured against duty. Against this steel frame stood Camilla, whose path into the royal family had been fraught with scandal, whispers of betrayal, and an uneasy acceptance from the people. To place the crown upon her head was, in Philip's eyes, more than just a ceremonial act. It was a gamble with the very trust the monarchy had left. It was as though Philip foresaw instability that others refused to acknowledge. In his silence during public moments, there was a storm building beneath. Anne's confirmation unveiled that storm, and for the first time, Britain could imagine the clash that had existed behind palace doors. Could it be that Philip had feared not only Camilla's past, but the way her future might unravel the hard-earned dignity of the monarchy? The thought sent chills through those who understood the power of perception. For once the crown was tainted in the eyes of the people, its power would never be the same. The public reaction was immediate and divided. Some saw Anne's words as a rare glimpse of truth piercing through the carefully woven fabric of royal silence. Others bristled, asking why such revelations came only now, when the monarchy already stood in fragile balance. Yet beneath the noise of commentary and speculation lay a deeper unease, one that echoed Philip's own. Was the monarchy gambling with more than its image? Was it risking its survival? Anne's revelation raised an unspoken question that hung heavy in the air. What was Philip trying to prevent? Was it scandal, rebellion, or a fracture so deep it could never be mended? The answer remained cloaked in shadows, but the weight of his warning pressed down like a curse waiting to be fulfilled. But to understand Philip's haunting warning, we must first return to the moments when Camilla's name first collided with royal destiny. Before she ever wore a crown, Camilla carried with her a shadow, a presence that unsettled the monarchy long before the public knew the full story. Philip had watched her carefully, studying her influence, her ambitions, and the ripple effect of her every move. It wasn't the public scandals that troubled him most. It was something deeper, something he sensed that could unravel the monarchy's foundation. To him, Camilla was not just another figure in the long saga of royal companions. She was the turning point, the one who could alter the very DNA of the monarchy itself. The early days of her presence at royal gatherings brought a chill that was rarely spoken aloud but often felt. Senior royals, bound by duty and tradition, eyed her with unease. She was not born into the mold of royal expectation, nor was she willing to shrink into the background as others had done before her. The tension was subtle, but undeniable. Polite smiles concealed sharp doubts, and every word, every gesture, was weighed against centuries of unspoken codes. For a monarchy already walking a fragile line, Camilla's place within it felt like an intrusion that couldn't be ignored. Philip, known for his sharp tongue and even sharper instincts, remained outwardly reserved. But behind the mask of formality, his observations were piercing. He studied Camilla in silence, never quick to voice judgment, but always alert to signs of imbalance. His silence was not indifference, it was strategy. He believed that the monarchy could withstand scandal if it acted decisively. But what it could not survive was complacency. In Camilla, he saw a risk not in what the world already knew, but in what it might yet discover. Charles's infatuation with her only deepened Philip's unease. Where the father saw danger, the son saw devotion. Their clash was not open, but it simmered in the undercurrents of countless conversations. For Philip, loyalty to the crown always outweighed personal longing. For Charles, however, love blurred the lines of tradition, making him blind to the storm that his choice was already inviting. It was here that father and son diverged most tragically, Philip protecting the throne, Charles protecting his heart. What unsettled Philip most was the sense that Camilla's rise was not merely about a relationship, it represented a dangerous shift in royal tradition itself. The monarchy had always stood as a symbol of continuity, bound by rules stronger than personal desire. Yet here was a woman whose presence threatened to bend those rules, to test the boundaries of what the public would tolerate, and to gamble with the respect that had been painstakingly built across centuries. In her, Philip saw the embodiment of change, not progress, but destabilization. Behind closed doors, there were moments when these concerns surfaced. Private confrontations, spoken in tones sharp and unyielding, rippled through palace walls. The words may never be recorded, but the weight of them lingered. Those within earshot spoke of silence that followed like a suffocating fog. Philip did not easily show anger, but when he did, it carried the force of a command, a reminder that he had spent his life in a world where hesitation meant defeat. This was the same instinct that had carried him through war and crisis, the instinct to spot threats before they could strike. Now, it was being applied to his own family. Philip was not merely concerned with appearances, he was preparing for survival. He saw the monarchy as a fortress under siege, and Camilla as the crack in the wall that could let the enemy in. For him, the danger was not hypothetical, it was inevitable. And yet, Philip's warning wasn't born overnight. It was carved from decades of conflict, loyalty, and bitter lessons learned in silence. Philip had seen pain before on the battlefield, in exile, in the lonely corridors of duty. But nothing shook him more than the shadow Princess Diana left behind. He knew Diana's spirit would haunt the monarchy forever. To crown Camilla, he feared, would not only dishonor her memory, but reopen wounds the public had sworn never to forgive. For Philip, the loss of Diana was not just a personal tragedy, it was a turning point that carved deep scars into the heart of the nation and into the fabric of the monarchy itself. Behind his stern exterior, Philip carried a quiet compassion for Diana that few ever saw. He was a man known for discipline and harsh truths, yet when it came to her, there was a recognition of her suffering that softened even him. He understood that Diana had become more than a princess. She was the people's voice, their dream, their hope, wrapped in grace and vulnerability. To ignore her legacy, Philip believed, was to ignore the very foundation upon which the monarchy's survival depended. He had watched the outpouring of grief when Diana died, and he knew it was not a fleeting emotion. The people's loyalty to her had not faded with time, it had deepened, transforming her into a permanent symbol of love and loss. Crowning Camilla, he feared, would be seen as erasing that memory, as rewriting history in a way the public would never forgive. To Philip, such an act wasn't merely insensitive, it was betrayal. A betrayal of the people's trust, and a betrayal of the woman who had given the monarchy a new kind of relevance. In the starkest of contrasts, Camilla stood as the opposite of Diana's image. Diana was the rose adored by millions, while Camilla carried the weight of scandals and shadows. To the public, Diana represented innocence, compassion, and sacrifice. Camilla, on the other hand, embodied controversy, whispers, and division. Philip recognized how this contrast would amplify the backlash, how every crown placed upon Camilla's head would appear, in the eyes of many, as a crown stolen from Diana's grave. Anne's revelation confirmed what Philip had always felt, that crowning Camilla was nothing less than a betrayal. It wasn't just a matter of family tension, It was about the moral contract between monarch and nation. Philip had given his life to preserving that contract, and he feared that honoring Camilla in such a way would shatter it forever. His silence in public masked a storm of private conviction, one that Anne finally gave voice to when she confirmed his deepest fears. Philip foresaw the inevitability of public backlash. He knew that no matter how much time passed, the people's loyalty to Diana would resurface at the worst possible moment. Crowning Camilla would not bring stability. It would unleash old wounds, fan the flames of resentment, and awaken ghosts the monarchy had tried desperately to bury. And in the court of public opinion, Philip knew ghosts never stayed silent. Perhaps his quietest fear was also his greatest, that Diana's ghost would outshine any crown Camilla might wear. Even as queen, Camilla would live in Diana's shadow, and Philip feared that shadow would grow darker with time, consuming not only her reign, but the monarchy itself. But Diana was not the only reason Philip's warning stretched deeper into the realm of legacy and power itself. Prince Philip was not just a consort, he was a soldier, a strategist, a man trained to detect weakness before it struck. Anne revealed that her father viewed Camilla not as a woman alone, but as a symbol of potential fracture. To him, her coronation could invite division at the very moment the monarchy required unity. And in Philip's world, division was fatal. Every decision he ever made was shaped by a life spent in service to order, discipline, and survival. He did not see crowns as ornaments, nor titles as luxuries. They were shields in a war that never truly ended, a war for legitimacy in the eyes of the people. His naval background had honed instincts sharper than steel. Philip was trained to anticipate storms before they reached the horizon, to see the threat behind calm waters, and to strike with precision before the enemy even raised its flag. Those instincts never left him when he entered the palace. The monarchy, in his eyes, was another kind of battlefield, one not fought with ships and guns, but with perception, loyalty, and the fragile weight of tradition. A single misstep could unravel centuries of endurance. That was the calculation he made when he looked at Camilla. Philip applied military logic to every royal decision. He knew that optics mattered more than intention, and that perception could destroy what force of arms could not. He treated Coronation as a campaign of survival, where every detail was a maneuver in the grand chess game of power. In that framework, Camilla's coronation was not merely ceremonial. It was, as he once implied, a battlefield of public opinion. And it was a battle the monarchy could ill afford to lose. The public's trust, already fragile after Diana's death, could not withstand what Philip saw as a provocative gamble. His warnings carried the bluntness of a commander. Weakness, he believed, invites attack. To crown Camilla was, in his eyes, to reveal vulnerability, to expose the monarchy's flank at the precise moment it most required strength. The world beyond palace walls was changing. The media hungry for scandal, politics leaning toward reform, and citizens questioning the value of monarchy itself. In such a climate, Philip saw Camilla's controversial past not as a mere detail, but as the very crack in the armor that could let the blade of criticism pierce the institution to its core. Anne's words confirmed this vision of her father. When she spoke of his perspective, she did so with a gravity that silenced the room. It was not about dislike or personal disdain, it was about survival. It was about survival, she admitted, echoing her father's military instincts. Philip's life had been one long campaign to shield the monarchy from every storm, and in Camilla's coronation, he saw the kind of storm that no strategy could contain once unleashed. And still, the warning was not only about public opinion, it was also about family bonds that could not withstand another fracture. When Anne spoke, it wasn't with the sharpness she is known for. It was softer, heavier, as though lifting a burden too long carried. She admitted what few dared say. Her father did not trust Camilla with the crown. For Anne, confirming his words meant exposing a truth the palace had buried. A truth that could ignite conflict between the king's legacy and the people's heart. The weight of her words was not merely revelation, it was an earthquake shaking the very ground on which the monarchy stood. Anne's rare moment of vulnerability revealed more than gossip or speculation. It revealed the deep fracture that had always existed between loyalty to family and loyalty to truth. Known for her strength, her bluntness, and her stoic devotion to duty, Anne's choice to break that silence was nothing less than extraordinary. For decades she had carried the shadow of her father's warning, and now, speaking it aloud, she seemed to trade the palace's rigid security for something more dangerous. In that moment, the world saw not just a princess, but a daughter bearing the voice of her father's conscience. The emotional weight of her confession was almost unbearable. By confirming Philip's private warning, Anne was reopening wounds long buried under protocol and ceremony. The monarchy had spent years trying to craft an image of unity, stability, and acceptance, but Anne's words shattered that carefully woven facade. She exposed what many had always suspected, that behind the gilded walls there had been deep distrust, even fear, of Camilla's place at the head of the monarchy. This was not palace gossip, it was Philip's conviction, now spoken through the lips of his most loyal child. Anne's loyalty to her father surpassed the silence the palace demanded. She had been raised under his iron principles, forged by his example of service and duty, and she understood that to remain silent now would be a betrayal to the man who had given everything to protect the crown. The palace might have preferred discretion, but Anne chose loyalty to truth over loyalty to secrecy. It was not rebellion for its own sake, it was an act of love and honor, a daughter ensuring her father's warning would not be lost in the dust of time. Her confession also highlighted the generational divide between her and Charles. For Charles, love and personal redemption had been worth bending tradition. For Anne, shaped by Philip's strict worldview, tradition and stability came before personal desire. Her words carried an implicit rebuke to her brother's choices, not spoken in anger, but delivered with the quiet authority of someone who believed the monarchy was never about one individual. It was about the endurance of an entire institution. That divide now stood exposed, widening the rift between brother and sister, and by extension, between two visions of monarchy itself. Symbolically, Anne emerged as the truth-teller of the family, the one who would say what others dared not. Where others cloaked themselves in silence, Anne unmasked the fragile heart of the crown. Her voice became the bridge between the living and the dead, ensuring that Philip's warning was not forgotten but immortalized. She did not cloak her revelation in political calculation. She delivered it with the blunt honesty for which she was known, and in doing so, she shifted the narrative forever. The emotional climax came when Anne declared without hesitation that Philip's warning was real. Those words echoed like a bell tolling through the corridors of power, an unshakable confirmation that the man who had stood guard over the monarchy for a lifetime had feared the very moment that had now come to pass. With that admission, Anne ensured that Camilla's coronation would never be remembered as a mere ceremonial moment, but as the fulfillment of a warning too dire to ignore. Yet what was it that Philip feared most? His words were not just about Camilla, they were about the future of the monarchy itself. For Philip, the crown was more fragile than the public ever believed. He had watched empires collapse, rulers deposed, and nations turn their backs on their sovereigns. His warning, Anne confirmed, was not about Camilla alone, but about how one wrong face beneath the crown could destroy centuries of trust overnight. To Philip, monarchy was not a guarantee, not an eternal promise. It was a delicate bargain between ruler and people, one that could shatter with the faintest crack. His life had given him a sharp understanding of fragility. Born into exile, raised amidst political instability, and forged in the chaos of war, Philip knew better than most that institutions which appeared immovable could fall in an instant. He had seen thrones crumble across Europe, leaders toppled, dynasties reduced to little more than whispers of history. And now, he feared that his own family's crown could meet the same fate. The danger was not only enemies. From without, it was the appearance of weakness within. Philip's belief was stark. Optics could destroy more than scandal. Scandal, he believed, could be managed, contained, and outlasted. But perception once broken was irreparable. A single image could undo years of loyalty. The crown was not made of gold or jewels in his eyes, but of trust, and trust was brittle. In crowning Camilla, Philip saw a face that carried too many doubts, too many unresolved wounds, and too much history to bear the weight of that fragile trust. He warned that the people would not see stability, they would see betrayal wrapped in ceremony. The crown, to Philip, was sacred but brittle, like glass. Its beauty and power meant nothing if it cracked under the strain of public outrage. He had spent his life shielding it from storms, ensuring it remained untarnished, yet he feared Camilla's coronation would place it on an unsteady pedestal. It was not just a question of legitimacy, but of symbolism. If the crown could be given to someone long viewed with suspicion, then perhaps it was no longer sacred at all. That, Philip believed, was the greatest danger of all the unraveling of reverence itself. Anne emphasized the weight of this warning with chilling precision. She confirmed that her father did not speak from personal dislike, but from deep experience. His words were not idle. They were calculated from a lifetime of service and observation. She repeated his conviction that the crown could not withstand another fracture, that one wrong choice could set into motion a collapse that would not stop at Camilla, but would consume the monarchy entirely. For Anne, sharing his warning was not only about revealing the truth, it was about echoing his final plea for the monarchy's survival. And there was something eerily prophetic about Philip's fears. He seemed to foresee a world no longer bowing in quiet loyalty but ready to rebel. A modern rebellion not fought with swords or revolutions, but with headlines, protests, and disillusionment. The people's patience with monarchy was thinner than the palace dared admit, and Philip understood that it would take only one spark to ignite it. To him, Camilla's coronation was that spark, but the warning did not end with fragility. Philip left behind a chilling message, one Anne has now made impossible to ignore. Anne confirmed that Philip's final words about Camilla were not spoken lightly. They came in the twilight of his life, when every word was sharpened with urgency. He warned, if the monarchy crowned Camilla, the institution itself might pay the price. His voice, still commanding even in frailty, rang like a soldier's last order, an order now left hanging in the air, unresolved and haunting. These were not the ramblings of an old man, but the sharpened instincts of a warrior who had seen too much to ignore the threat that loomed. Philip's health may have been failing, but his mind remained razor-sharp. Even as his body grew weaker, he did not waste words. Every sentence was chosen carefully, each one pressed with the weight of decades of experience. To Anne, his tone was chilling not because of its anger, but because of its clarity. He was not speculating, not imagining, he was certain. In his final days, when most would soften their truths, Philip grew even bolder. And the truth he left behind was that Camilla's coronation would invite danger. Danger not just to the monarchy's image, but to its survival. This warning, delivered in private, became etched in Anne's memory. She did not hear it as the musings of a fading father, but as a command passed from one generation to the next. Philip entrusted her with his conviction, perhaps knowing she alone had the strength to voice it when the time came. Anne became the custodian of his last words, carrying them like a hidden weapon, waiting for the moment when silence would no longer protect the truth. That moment came when she revealed them to the world. The directness of Philip's words left no room for interpretation. Coronation would mean danger. He spoke as a strategist, not as a sentimental man. He saw Camilla not through the lens of personal bias, but as a potential fracture that could ripple through the monarchy. To crown her was to gamble with history, and in Philip's eyes, gambling was reckless when the survival of an institution rested on stability. For him, this was not about preference, it was about foresight. Anne's role as messenger added a generational echo that gave Philip's words even greater weight. In her voice, his warning found new life. It was as if the father's final command had passed into the daughter's soul, to be spoken when the world needed to hear it most. She carried it with solemnity, not as scandal, but as duty. And in that choice, she ensured Philip's warning would not vanish into silence. Instead, it became a haunting reminder that even in death, Philip's presence loomed over the monarchy's decisions. The imagery of a soldier's last command lingered with chilling power. For those who knew Philip, it was not hard to imagine him, frail yet unbending, speaking words that felt like orders delivered on a battlefield. And indeed, to him, this was a battlefield one where the enemy was not foreign, but internal. He gave his final order with the authority of a man who had fought wars, survived crises, and knew what collapse looked like. The monarchy, he warned, could be next, if it ignored his counsel. Yet the most unsettling truth is that Camilla was crowned despite his warning. The crown now rests where Philip believed it should never be, and that unresolved tension haunts every royal occasion. The world, Anne implied, must ask itself whether ignoring him was an act of resilience or a fatal mistake. Was this a monarchy that proved Philip wrong, or one that is slowly proving him right? And as the world looks back now, Anne's revelation makes one question. Was Philip right all along? The coronation came. The crown was placed. And yet Philip's warning hangs like a ghost over the monarchy's every move. Anne's confirmation has reignited the question. Did Britain ignore its wisest protector? As Camilla sits on the throne, the echoes of Philip's voice grow louder. Was this the moment the monarchy chose pride over survival? What should have been a triumphal moment of continuity instead became a chilling reminder of the prophecy left unheeded, one that now stalks every gesture, every appearance, every word that escapes the palace walls. The reality of Camilla's coronation stood in stark defiance of Philip's caution. The ceremony, grand and gilded, was designed to project stability, but beneath the pomp there lingered an unease. The palace pressed forward as though nothing could shake the crown, but the shadows of doubt whispered in every corner. Philip's absence was more than physical, it was symbolic. The very man who had devoted his life to safeguarding the monarchy had been silenced by death, and yet his voice spoke louder than ever through his daughter's revelation. The crown might have been secured on Camilla's head, but it sat upon foundations already trembling. Public division remains raw, and Anne's confirmation only sharpened the divide. For some, Camilla represents acceptance, a reweaving of royal history that speaks to forgiveness. But for many more, her coronation was a betrayal that proved Philip's words prophetic. Crowds may have cheered, but voices of dissent carried just as far, echoing across Britain and beyond. The monarchy, instead of standing united with the people, found itself walking a tightrope between celebration and condemnation, and Anne's bold truth-telling ensured that the whispers of doubt could no longer be dismissed as conspiracy. They were now undeniable. The emotional image of Philip watching from beyond weighs heavily in the collective imagination. One cannot help but envision him, stern and unflinching, standing unseen in the corridors of history, shaking his head as the crown was lowered onto Camilla. His warning, so clear in its urgency, has now become part of the coronation itself, a ghostly footnote that refuses to fade. To many, it feels as though Philip himself still walks with the monarchy, not as a figure of comfort, but as a shadow of judgment, his eyes fixed on whether the institution will withstand the storm he predicted. The palace, in contrast, has chosen silence. Its officials maintain ceremony, smiling and performing tradition as though nothing has shifted. But silence is its own confession, and in that silence the contrast with Anne's boldness is striking. She, the daughter who inherited Philip's steel, chose to speak what others would not. Her confirmation pierced the armor of royal restraint, ensuring that Philip's warning could not be buried. The palace's refusal to engage only deepens the suspicion. Were they afraid of what Philip had foreseen? And the sense of a storm still brews. Every controversy, every misstep, every whisper of division within the family is now framed against Philip's haunting prediction. It is no longer just a scandal. It is evidence that the prophecy is unfolding. The monarchy, once unshakable in its aura of permanence, is being tested in ways that align uncannily with Philip's fears. The reckoning is here. Can this institution, already battered by loss and division, endure the very fracture he believed would be its undoing? Or has the line already been crossed, with consequences no coronation can reverse? And so we are left with a haunting truth, one that Anne has dared to confirm, a truth that may yet reshape the monarchy's future. In the end, Philip's warning is no longer a rumor, it is legacy, confirmed by his daughter, carved into history, and etched into the soul of the monarchy. Whether Camilla's crown stands or falls, the warning itself will outlive them all. And as Britain looks toward the future, one question lingers like a storm over the palace gates. Was this the moment Prince Philip saved the monarchy, or the moment it was lost forever? His words, once whispered in private, now reverberate across generations, shaping the way history will judge not only Camilla, but the institution itself. Anne has become the custodian of her father's truth. In speaking his final warning aloud, she took what might have faded into silence and placed it firmly into the public consciousness. She carried his voice into the light, ensuring that Philip's instincts and fears were not dismissed as the musings of an old man, but remembered as the last stand of a soldier who saw danger when others chose to ignore it. Her courage transformed a hidden concern into an undeniable reality, one that will forever haunt the monarchy's story. Philip's warning has now been elevated from whisper to historical legacy. It is no longer just a private conviction spoken within palace walls. It is part of the monarchy's narrative, woven into the broader fabric of its trials and its future. Every move the crown makes is now measured against the weight of his foresight. Every stumble, every controversy, every division will be seen as evidence of his prophecy, making his words impossible to escape. His warning is now immortal, a shadow that will not die even as generations change. And with it, the enduring fragility of the monarchy stands exposed. For centuries, the crown has projected itself as eternal, unshakable, and untouchable. Yet Philip's words remind us that beneath the gold and ceremony lies something breakable, a structure dependent on trust and loyalty, both of which can vanish in an instant. The fragility he feared has not vanished. It hangs above the monarchy like a suspended glass, glittering but vulnerable to the slightest crack. The possibility of history repeating itself looms like a specter. Philip had seen dynasties collapse across Europe, monarchs overthrown, and royal families reduced to relics. He knew Britain was not immune to the tides of change, and he feared that one ill-placed decision could ignite the same fate. His warning stands not only as a critique of Camilla's coronation, but as a chilling reminder that even the oldest thrones can crumble. And Anne's confirmation makes it clear that the monarchy is not exempt from that truth. The unanswered question of survival versus collapse now defines the monarchy's future. Will it endure, proving Philip's fear misplaced? Or will it fall, confirming his prophecy with devastating precision? No one can say. What is certain is that the monarchy now lives under the weight of a choice that cannot be undone, a decision that will either hold or break under history's relentless judgment. The suspense lies not in the past, but in what is yet to come. And so the story closes not with peace, but with haunting inevitability. Philip's warning lingers like an unbroken echo, a prophecy still unfolding in real time. The monarchy may wear its crowns, wave its flags, and project its grandeur. But behind it all stands the ghost of a soldier who spoke a final truth, a truth that outlived him, that Anne carried into the world, and that may yet decide the fate of the throne itself. And so, Philip's voice does not fade. It grows louder with time, carried by Anne, confirmed at last, and destined never to be forgotten. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one.